Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people, and legends as well, like Nicholas Parsons. How are you?
I'm very well, and how flattering to be called a legend. You're so kind.
Well, you are, and I genuinely mean it. I have spent my Monday nights with you for my entire life. There you are on Radio 4, making us laugh. Do you firstly realise the joy and pleasure you've given to people for so many years?
No, you don't think of it like that. You just think of doing a good job. I'm amazed by these performers who say, oh, I don't listen to myself, I don't watch myself. I mean, I think it's essential. By watching what you do and listening to what you do, you learn, you hone your craft, you get little things, oh, yeah, that was good, I must remember that. Oh, not that again. And so I've always done that, and I feel it's a learning curve. I still feel I'm learning. It's an amazing profession. You never cease to find some little nuance which will embellish your performance and enhance the programme. And I think it's very important to do that. And so I go out there to have fun and make rapport with the audience and make them laugh. And if they laugh, then I'm happy, I'm satisfied. And then you've got to do the same again next time you're on show.
I know some people will say when they watch themselves back or hear themselves, they can sometimes take away the thing that the audience loves that you might not be aware of. Have you ever considered that you can actually overanalyze yourself?
Well, I suppose you can of course you can overanalyze yourself. Quite a good director. I think I'd rather have been a director than a performer, and I've directed 1 or 2 plays. But the trouble is the profession's so specialised now that if I wanted to concentrate on being a director, I would have had to give up performing some time ago. And it's not indulging oneself. It's learning. Show business is a learning curve. The things are changing all the time. I watch lots of programs, and some of them I'm amazed at and think, how did that ever get on the air? Other times I think that's absolutely fabulous, and other times you think, yeah, it would do better if they did so and so. And but this is not to take anything away from the people who do manage to perform. Because it's a tough business. I mean, you go out there, especially if you're doing solo, which I do a lot of now. You know, you're naked and nothing else to back you up. And you immediately have to make a rapport with that audience, get them on your side, and make them feel you're worth listening to. And slowly you get them on your wavelength and get them to laugh. And it's a tough business. There's nothing more demanding anywhere else in the world. And you're only as good as your last show, because people often say to me, and because of my age now, had you thought of retiring? And my answer is quite simple. I'm in a profession that retires you. Once the audience decided I can no longer do it, and I'm not making them laugh or entertaining them, or the employers think I'm not, I'm out, I'm finished. I'm on that proverbial scrap heap. But providing I can still achieve it, I will go on, because I enjoy it. I was frustrated as a little boy from doing what I wanted to do. My parents were determined I should never go into showbiz. Well, they didn't call it showbiz, as then become an actor, and steered me away from it into engineering. And I am a qualified marine and mechanical engineer. But all the time I was getting away, doing bits and pieces in different shows, and getting a very early raw experience, so that when after the war, and I was discharged from everything, because I was in a reserved occupation on Clydebank, working for a pump firm called Drysdale's. And I got the full apprenticeship in there. I did a little time at the university, but technically I was never cut out to be an engineer. But practically, yes, I'm very capable with my hands. I've always had a lot of tools. I make things. I've got a lot of grandfather clocks I've repaired and put together and made go, and I've still got them. In fact, I'm very flattered by the fact that the Clockmakers Guild have made me a member. And I'm going to their annual banquet quite soon. And so, but I see that as a creative thing, being creative with your hands. And but technically, it wasn't for me, and I didn't want to do it anyway. I wanted to perform. But and it was damn difficult after the war. You had no connections. In fact, when my parents said to me after I'd been discharged from everything, because I'd been very ill for a time, what are you going to do now with your engineering? And I said, I'm going to give it up. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, I became an engineer to please you. I'm not going to become an actor to please myself. But they said, you've no connections, you've no contacts. I said, I know, but I'll make them. And I think that if you are really determined enough and driven to achieve something, eventually, if you don't give up, you keep pursuing it and being persistent, but not persistence in an irritating way. I mean, I did sit in one theatre manager's office for about 4 consecutive days, morning and afternoon, until they gave me an audition. And they got so frustrated with me there, and then they just had a frustration. They said, I'll come down to the Aldrich this afternoon and read. And I went and read, and I got the part. And you see, it was a persistence based on the fact that that I knew from the little bit of experience I'd had up in Glasgow that I did have some ability, and maybe I could hack it. And so I've had a very, very checkered career, and it's in the autobiography, it's in the memoirs. And now, of course, I got a new book out based on Just a Minute, which you've referred to, because that is one of the longest jobs I've ever had. It's radio, so it's not well paid. It doesn't really pay the rent. It's the other jobs I do around the theatre, you know, doing my one-man comedy show, which I'm off to do next week.
Is that true even at this point? They don't pay you as well as the live stuff? Because, I mean, it's the thing that you're most famous for and in many people around the world's lives most loved for.
Well, I think I get what would be considered a good radio fee, but there's not as much money in radio as television. I mean, when the show did go on television, I got considerably more, even though the show wasn't established on television. And I think from a radio point of view, it's probably well paid. But and, you know, we do 24 shows a year, but, I mean, that barely pays the rent. And but don't misunderstand me. The BBC are very good. I love the BBC, particularly BBC Radio. There's some very talented people working there. Unfortunately, what's changed is they've got it become more of a bureaucracy, and you've got all these commissioning editors who are commissioning people. They're not creative people. They're the administrators. And beneath them, I know in BBC Radio Comedy, we've got wonderful staff of wonderful, talented producers there. And they're the ones who put the things together and make them shows work. And we're the ones who help them do it. But you asked about the money. No, you can't say what you get because people haven't got nothing to compare it with. But I think they pay me. We all get the same, by the way. There's no difference between those who are guesting and the chairman, which is only fair. It's only should be. No distinction.
I think that's outrageous. You're the presenter and you're the talent that comes in and turns up and holds the whole thing together. You should be rewarded for it. It makes me wonder, do you feel they value as much as they should do?
I don't know. Maybe you should be my agent or bargain for me, but I'm content with what they do. I think that's fair. I think they all contribute in their own way. Some of the new people who come in don't do so well, and we struggle, and they don't usually ask back. But the regulars, I mean, their contributions are amazing. No, I think it's right that we...
Right, but the captain of the ship isn't paid the same as the people who keep the engine room going, is he?
You've got a good argument, but you put it to the BBC, I'm not going to do it.
It's interesting, one thing you said earlier, isn't it ironic that you've spent your early life with a love of clocks and timing, and now Just a Minute, and your comedy is based on timing?
Well, all comedy is based on timing. I mean, the art of comedy is timing. And what I've said, and I said in my book here, the art of comedy performance is more sophisticated timing. And no one's ever said that before, but it's very interesting that I do love clocks and time. And it is always my great joy when I wind them up at the weekends and when they all chime at the same time. Oh, I've achieved something.
That's thrilling, is it?
Oh, gosh, yes. My wife, she's got one or two. I said, you haven't wound up the clock I gave you. Well, darling, I know you'll do it. I'm not. I know, but I'm not here forever. I mean, you've got to learn to look after it. Because if you don't keep a clock going, it slowly seizes up, and then you've got to take it all apart and oil it, and that takes a lot of time and effort. Yes, I do enjoy clocks. I'm fascinated by them. Well, I'm fascinated by the movement, because they've been, over the years, evolved in such a way that wheels, and they're all picking up, and little thing ratchets are going, and then that drops in there into that slot there, and that wheel blends in with that wheel. It's wristwatches. I do make sure it's clocks. Wristwatches are far too sophisticated for me to get involved in. But Yeah, clocks are lovely. I'm fascinated by them, yes.
It was interesting. I spent some time last week with Ken Dodd, who I've known for 20 years, and he celebrated 60 years in show business. And he was saying you only retire when you stop doing something you don't want to do stuff you do want to do. But he's doing what he wants to do, so there's no point. How do you think show business treats you as a senior member of the community? Do you feel respected? Do you feel you're given the time and praise that you actually deserve?
I think it would be very difficult to me to answer that one. I think it's your observations would be best. But I do remember, I think, a remark I believe Noel Coward made once. He says, there's no such fun. Acting is more fun than fun. And I find it's something I'd always wanted to do. And so performing, facing an audience, making a rapport with them, and the adrenaline it pumps gives you such deep satisfaction. It knows that I've always wanted to do that. It's a way of giving out to people in a way, and I think the audience know that. They warm to the performers who are very warm personalities and give out. You mentioned dear Den Cod. Love that spoonerism. I must tell him next time I see him. Den God. Oh, Ken Dodd. Dear Ken, I love him dearly. He's an exceptional man. But he loves his work, you see. And that's what keeps him going. And when people say you're driven, no. Somebody said to me, are you an obsessional worker? No, I do it because I love it. I do it because I want to communicate with people. I want to take them out of themselves. It's a tough, tough world. And life is much more stressful now than it used to be. And if you can help them to forget their troubles and stresses for a while and have an enjoyable time and laugh, and you have that ability or that gift to do that, gosh, isn't that wonderful?
What's interesting, you keep talking about being an actor and your love of it, but you're best known for being Nicholas Parsons. I wonder whether inside you would rather have been somebody else.
That is a very complicated question. I mean, I'd always done lots of bits and pieces. I started as an impersonator, as a Carol Levis discovery, and doing bits of stand-up and everything like that. But when I got really going, I had an ambition to be an actor, and did a lot of acting in plays and so forth. And I think probably my strength is there. But I've always spread my talent, such as it is, over a broad spectrum of entertainment, because most performers concentrate on one thing. You know, they're either an actor, a comedy actor, or a stand-up comedian, or a presenter. It's a whole new world, never existed as a profession when I was young. And people specialise. And I've done all of them. And there's a different discipline for each kind of job. It all comes down to acting. And in recent years, I've become better known as a presenter than as an actor. And funnily enough, once I did the quiz show, Sale of the Century, which was incredibly successful, and I'm proud of its success. But actually, it really ruined me as a performer, because after that, I couldn't get any work as an actor. They're so literal, employers are. They said, no, he's a quiz show host. It was almost as if I'd forgotten how to act. And I had to struggle to get started all over again. I did it, actually, by taking on roles in rather offbeat shows which had a youth following, like Night Network on the LWT, and then the wonderful show I did with Rick Mail and Ade Edmondson called Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door, with Stephen Frears directed. And I was the fall guy there, and they sent me up. But I think the association with these iconic characters helped me to forge a whole new image. But you see, if I have an image, which I think you were saying, I don't have an image of myself. The public give you that image. And if, for a time, I mean, the goodies used to send me up rotten. That was the result of the image I projected from Sale of the Century, was that of a rather formal, pompous quiz show host, which I found that was a persona I put on because it worked and made the show successful. And they send you up for that. And I laughed with the other people. And you see, you don't create your own image. So many people might, but I just am myself. I always have been, and will always do what I think. If it's a job in a play, I work out what I have to do, what the character is, and try and recreate that character. I mean, if it's a stand-up, I go out there and try and get the audience, as I did last night. I was working down at the Cutty Sark, and that theatre they've got on board the old Clipper in Greenwich, and you go out there, get a nice warm response as you do, but that's a lot to do with old age. I mean, I think people think, oh, we know him, he's been going a long time, and they give you a lovely warm applause, but you've still got to entertain them. And it was a very successful evening, but you go out there to do your job, to entertain. I'm not there because I got an image. And if I was relying on one's image, you'd be finished.
I accept that, but we love you for being you. And what's interesting, I mean, you did Sale of the Century for...
What is me? I don't know.
Well, let me tell you my perception of you. I'm a 34-year-old man who's listened to you on the radio and watched you briefly on Sale of the Century. I mean, you were on that from 71 to 84. So that is a huge amount of time to be doing one thing. You talk about Just a Minute, which is where I know you best. I mean, my entire life you've been there in the radio. You're incredibly quick. You're incredibly witty. You're very, very warm as a person. You can't really just get rid of that when you see you in something else. That's the difficulty about being around doing something for so long. We fall in love with who we hear and what we see.
I see your analysis and assessment, yes. And one has to fall in with that. And I think every so often you try and break the mould and you take on a job which is quite different. I remember many years ago I'd done a lot of films and I was offered a part in a thriller and I was playing a really heavy, nasty, sinister bastard. And I was thrilled to get this role.
You loved it.
And in fact, it's much easier playing those sort of roles than it is playing the lovable hero characters. And I really enjoyed playing that part. From an acting point of view, they're much easier.
But what's interesting, Nicholas, you've lit up when you talk about that. When I talk about the stuff like Sale in the Century, you seem a bit down about it. Do you regret doing it?
No, I don't regret anything. I was thrilled to do it. I'm excited by its success. What I was trying to convey was it is very sad that in this profession, in this country, that you get so labelled by the image you project in a particular job. Now, in America, you know, the more you do, the more you spread your talent over different areas of entertainment, the more respect you have. Yes. In this country, they're suspicious of you. Oh, I remember him when he was an actor. I remember him when he did this. No, I am all those things. I just happen to be doing this one at the moment. So, no, I'm not denigrating. You can't. If you have a success, you've got to embrace that success, which I do. It was sad that something I was doing which didn't require so much of my talent, and I've done other things which required far more of my talent and have not been so well rewarded and have not been so highly acclaimed. But those are the things you're more proud of, like that film I did. I mean, 10 years with Arthur Haynes. That was a memorable time. That's what established me as a name with the general public. And that was an amazing partnership we had from 1956 to 66. And Arthur only decided that we should separate and go our separate ways because I was suddenly getting a little bit too much attention, and he wanted most of it all as the comic in the partnership. Nowadays, in partnerships, it's nearly two comics together. In those days, you had the comic and his foil, or the straight man. But that's what established me as a name, and I think back on those days with huge pleasure, and because I knew we were forging something new, and I really would rather be remembered for the work I did there, because that required far more of my talent and my creative ability than Sale of the Century, which did not require a great deal of my creative talent.
I accept that, but you still have to remember the public loved you for it, or you wouldn't have done it for more than a decade.
If the public hadn't liked it, it would have been finished after the first series.
I suppose the moral to the story is you can't decide or choose what the public love you for, I suppose.
No. I mean, I didn't want the job of chairman of Just a Minute. I was going to be on the panel originally. I took the idea up, Ian Messiter's idea, brilliant idea, up to BBC Radio Night Entertainment, And because I wanted to be on the panel and do some ad-lib improvised comedy. I just won an award for a satire show I did. I did the first radio satire show, which I thought of and created, and it was a big success. And I got the Radio Personality Award of the Year, but I wanted to get away from that and do now some improvised comedy. And it was accepted. But Jimmy Edwards, if you're interested, was going to be the chairman. It was a good choice, because Jimmy has been chairman of a programme that was on then called Does the Team Think? Does the Team Stink? And I'm very tired, I think, from the show I did last night, because some number of spoonerisms I've given you today. But that was Jimmy hosted that with lots of 4 different comedians. And I think they saw a similarity. Good choice. I don't think Jimmy actually really wanted to do it, because he was never available when the producer asked him to do the pilot. And for those listening in show business, television or radio, you record a pilot program, and that's presented to the powers that be, and if they like it, they commission the series. And so he came to me and said, a very clever young man called David Hatch, and the book I've written about, Just a Minute, I've dedicated to David, because without him, it would never have seen the light of day. So Jimmy, I mean, it's very interesting, because they say Just a Minute should never have got on the air. And only because we had this clever young producer just come down from Cambridge, and he saw the potential, because he asked me to become chairman for the pilot. And he said, if we get the series, you can go back on the panel. And on that condition, I accepted it. And the pilot was a disaster, and they didn't want it. I mean, this is the lovely things about show business. We did a pilot show which was so bad, they didn't want it. And now it's one of the biggest successes they've got.
But isn't that the case with so many of those shows?
Yes, often. But it was thanks to David Hatch, who was a producer, and he saw it and put his job on the line and fought for it, because he saw the potential and made lots of different changes. And he came to me and said, Nicholas, one thing they seemed to like was your chairmanship. And I said, but David, I was awful. He said, yes, so was everybody else. And anyway, but in show business, if you get offered a good job, you don't turn it down. You find a way to make that job work for you and work for the show. And as I say on my one-man comedy show, I must have done something right, because I'm still doing it after 48 years.
Do you love it? Do you still love it?
I love it. I really do enjoy it. It's my favourite job now. And people say, I was so irritated by somebody who, in our profession, who should have known better, said to me recently, said, oh, you've been doing it so long now, over 900 performances. I suppose you're on a sort of automatic pilot. I said, come off. If I was on automatic pilot, the show would be dead now.
Well, it can't be. I mean, it's an ad-lib show. It's not a scripted show. I mean, you're on the ball throughout.
And this is one thing I'm very proud of. It is the only probably completely improvised show on radio or television. We have no script, no nothing. We're all making it up as we go along. And just before the producer introduces me and I go out and chat to the audience for a bit, you begin to get tense and nervous. You think, God, and that pumps the old adrenaline. And I think what I'm psychologically saying to myself is, you don't say, well, this has worked before, so it'll work again. I say, well, this has worked before, but will it work again? And you go out there, so that pumps the adrenaline, you make a rapport with the audience, I introduce the team, and we sit down and we have a few gags, and then we're into it, boom, and we're off. And it is so exciting when the laughs begin to come, and this is all spontaneous at the top of our heads.
We have talked for 25 minutes and I've loved every second of it. We're just down the road from each other. I was born in Nottingham, you Grantham.
In those days, doctors bought practices, and he went and joined a practice in Lincolnshire. You happen to say people are intrigued that my father was the doctor to Margaret Roberts, or she was then, but I mean, that's incidental. And we left there when I was 8, and we went to London, where I worked. And I went to a ghastly boarding school for a while, utterly miserable. And then I went to a wonderful school called Collick Court and St Paul's, and I owe a lot to them. And I'm on their rebuilding scheme now, because they've now moved down to the river in Barnes. So I don't think the roots, because my roots are very diverse. So my father's side, tracing them back, there's Oxfordshire family ancestors, and there's some up in Scotland. I've got some pictures at home. I don't know anything about them. I wish I did, but they're of my Scottish ancestors, and I'd love to go on who do you think you are, and discover who they were. And my mother's family are from Bristol. They're Bristolian people. They talk like that. And, they were true Bristol people. And so you get the mixture. I do believe there are certain character traits from certain parts of the country. That's true. But, and of course, the Scottish blood came surging up when I went to work on Clydebank, because I felt a huge affinity for the area, though I didn't have the same affinity for the people.
Nicholas, I want you to know how much I love you personally and how much warmth the public has for you. I hope you know that, because we adore you and we thank you for all the wonderful memories and the many, many laughs.
It's very kind of you to take the trouble to come up here to Broadcasting House and chat to me. I've been stimulated by the conversation and your questions, and thank you for your patience and your time, and also the lovely compliments you paid me.
I hope we can do it again.
And that's my mobile going off.
You better go.